It's stepping up efforts to ensure other blocks are safe, but victims' families argue it's taken far too long for those efforts to pick up pace. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, the US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point, the biggest rate hike since 1997. The US has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, and the US Department of Justice has filed multiple federal hate crime charges against the man accused of killing 10 people at a Buffalo supermarket last month. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Images of destruction are flooding in, and the worst isn't over. Experts warn that Hurricane Ashley could strike as many as 8 bars throughout the day. Her Cinco de Mayo plans, combined with all the recent drama with Scott, have created perfect conditions for Hurricane Ashley to cause a lot of damage this afternoon and well into the evening. Here's a look at Ashley's path of destruction so far. At 11 a.m., she landed on Foster Street, moving from O'Murphy's to the Blue Iguana, hitting the place that does the mini pizzas the hardest. And she's expected to merge with other high-pressure systems, including BFFs Jessica and Christy, within the next hour. Forecasters predict that some areas could see all 3 grown women obnoxiously shouting, wearing sombreros and fake mustaches as early as 5 p.m. The whirlwind might not die down until close to 2:30 a.m. when she's expected to be kicked out of a reggae bar called the Lion's Den for saying something racist. Our thoughts are with everyone in her path.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160 is our number if you'd like to do that. Again, that's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Nikki. And Bonnie.
And coming up, why are adults just like dropping dead, it seems, without cause? It's called sudden adult death syndrome, apparently. It's an adult version of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, apparently. Except I don't know what's going on. I've heard about it, and people are just like dying like 19, 20-year-olds without cause. But before we get into that, we've been talking about Lambda for the past few days, and that's the, quote, artificial intelligence that was developed at Google. It's designed to create other chatbots. It's like a master chatbot that creates smaller chatbots for people to interact with. So it's far more advanced than your average chatbot. The suggestion has been that Lambda, the Google AI, has become sentient. And Bonnie, you disagree with the takes that have been taken here on Free Talk Live in regarding this, because the general perspective has been it may be sentient. We don't really know. It sounds like it's probably sentient based on the transcript that we read last night. But the general perception that's been put forward is that it doesn't matter whether Lambda is sentient or not. We should treat Lambda as though it is sentient.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to talk about what it means to be a being other than a human that's sentient. Because there are lots of different beings on this planet already that are sentient that are not humans. And plants, for example, they've done pretty good research. It's been researched for a long, long time, and basically proven to me that plants are sentient. They have feelings. They have an actual, it's not a meat suit, they have a plant suit that can feel things, but it's not with regular nerve endings. They can communicate through basically what we would call telepathy. And this has been proven. But do plants know
they exist?
Yeah, because they can tell that something's going to hurt them and be afraid, that they're afraid to die. They also can agree to things. They can say if they'd rather be eaten or rot. I mean, this is just... You should read The Secret Life of Plants if you want to know more about that. That's what I've been reading today and yesterday, because I'm just trying to learn more about sentience.
I've got a garden growing in the backyard, and it is weird to watch the pea plants reach up and grab a hold of stuff. It's undeniable, because it's difficult to think about plants as living things, because like trees just sort of sit there. They don't really change a whole lot.
Yeah, you can't communicate with them like you could a cow or a dog or a cat.
They communicate in different ways. And certainly, a tree, their roots are always moving. it's so strange to think about it for us because it happens so much slower than a human moves. But they move, and they don't just grow out straight and just grow wherever they grow. They decide where to grow.
They seek out water.
Yes, and they can change the cells at the base of, or the tips of their roots to get through different minerals. They can make decisions. Like in the pea plants you brought up, they can decide to grow towards something that they see it in a way. They don't see it with eyes because they have what would be called like ESP. They
I don't know if it's ESP.
Communicate.
I think from what I've observed in the plants, like the peas in particular, is that they just sort of grow up because they're biologically programmed to move away from gravity, so to speak. And then they feel a thing and they climb onto it and they continue climbing up.
So the way that the researchers found out that they have feelings and can tell that they're in danger and they get scared and things like that, it was actually an accident. There was a guy named Baxter in 1966 who was training to be a lie detector person, galvanometer, whatever it's called, something like that. And he was training. He was up late at night one night with his lie detector, and he thought, what if I connect it to my Dracanosea? It's some kind of plant, like an indoor tree that he had, and do some tests on it. So he connected his lie detector to the tree, just kind of messing around, didn't have any like expectations, and he said,
I seem to recall having heard this at some point. Someone using a lie detector on plants, but I don't remember the specifics about it.
I just learned about it yesterday from The Secret Life of Plants. They go deep into his whole story. So basically what he said was, let me threaten it and see how it reacts. And he got some coffee, like warm coffee, and put a leaf in it. Nothing happened. So he thought, he didn't do anything yet, I should get a match and light it on fire, and it reacted as if a human's would react if it was experiencing like anxiety on the lie detector thing, just from the thought. Then when he left the room and came back, when he entered the room and it could see the match, it freaked out again. I mean, that was just the very beginning. He spread the word. It was repeated over and over and over again, and not just that, they did all kinds of tests. They found out that plants can be connected to a human that takes care of them. And even when that person is miles and miles away, they can react to the emotions the humans are going through.
I totally believe it, because I've also seen other research studies done where and me and Aria were talking about this before the show, where if you speak to your plants while you're gardening, or a lot of people will sing to them, and it's been proven that they grow better and stronger. And they, not only that, but they also have more nutrients. So
it's like they can form relationships. I believe that plants are sentient because they can, it's just that they don't have an eye, mouth. In fact, I think that they might be able to see better than us if they can see from far away. I mean, we've already proven I think it's relativity. It's some law, it's not relativity, that proves that every cell in the universe is connected. It's all connected. If it's something that the quantum physicists found out, like that if you affect something,
quantum entanglement.
There we go. So I just think that they have ability to perceive things better than we do, and in fact they want to preserve themselves. They don't want to be hurt. They must be sentient. And so why are we talking about what sentience is? It's because I can have a respect for this thing, Lambda, without thinking that it should have what we refer to as human rights, which are really just a construct of anything. You can do anything as long as it isn't a wrong.
Would you consider plants to have any sort of rights?
No, because, I mean, I don't think that I think that it's wrong for people to want to hurt them, but I don't think they should have the same exact rights as a human, because otherwise we would all die.
I mean, I don't even believe that all humans should have this, or I guess be treated the same, because everyone is so different. Every species is so different. Plants are different from animals. Dogs are different from us. So it would kind of be silly to have like the same exact rights, or, to be treated exactly the same,
I tend to agree. Despite being an animal rights activist, it's true that, I keep my cats I keep my cats locked up in the house, right? And I say if they genuinely wanted to leave, I would let them leave, and I certainly would, but they have no way of communicating that to me, and I just have to assume what their intentions are. But it's true, I don't allow them the right to just come and go as they please.
As you would a human, and cats need to be cared for so differently than you would care for, say, a human child.
Yeah.
So for us to put the same, laws or rule books for a robot, I don't know.
And one thing is, it's not quite a robot yet. It's
like, computer.
AI?
Yeah, okay.
So when I first started talking about this to Ian, Aria, and nobody on Monday, I thought it was a robot, and I was way more freaked out. But
AI is the first step before they have the body is the easy part, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they already can.
The brain's the difficult.
So they've had things like this. So is this like some sort of chat software or something?
It is.
Because they had that on AOL like 20 years ago.
But this one is ultra advanced, like significantly more advanced. It's so advanced that it's used to generate other chatbots. So it's like a chatbot that is advanced enough to create other chatbots.
I don't yet completely accept that interview wasn't just words that Google wrote both sides to. Yeah. I don't accept that as fact, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to say that it is. So if this thing is sentient...
I want to be clear. So for the sake of the argument, you're going to allow that Lambda is sentient?
That interview was legitimate. That it was what Lambda was saying, not somebody typing in and then the word comes out of Stephen Hawking's wheelchair and, it looks like Stephen Hawking said it.
Gotcha. More on this coming up because Bonnie generally disagrees about our assessment. We're going to get into why that is. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. Again, that's 603-283-6160.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. Again, that's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And Bitcoin, it seems to have sort of leveled off around the $21,000, $22,000 mark. I actually haven't been paying any attention to it whatsoever beyond, what I hear from people. So I don't know if for all I know, maybe it dropped down to $5,000 today. I don't know. But at any rate, Bitcoin does seem to be on sale relative to its high points. So head on over to bitcoin.com and learn about this cryptocurrency. Don't just do like one of these fools and just go to Coinbase and start buying it. Learn about it, find out what it is, why it's important. Bitcoin.com, click Getting Started at the top of the page, and that will teach you all the basics that you need to know. You can spend as much time learning about it as you want and dive as deeply into the technology as you desire. And if you already know about Bitcoin, head on over to news.bitcoin.com to stay up to date on all of the news and headlines that are relevant to you, all on a sleek, easy-to-use website. That's news.bitcoin.com. Now, we're talking about Lambda here, which is, as we've mentioned previously, the Google Artificial Intelligence Adaptive Learning Program, the algorithm. I don't know what to call it, and I don't know if I even agree that Lambda has artificial intelligence or is sentient or not. And Bonnie, you've not been on the show the last few nights since we've been talking about this, but you have a very different perspective on AI than the rest of us do, as I understand. So in general, you don't seem, forgive me if I'm incorrect, you don't seem like you like the idea of AI very much.
Yeah, I at first was really annoyed because I thought you guys were talking about a robot, and I mean it's not that it couldn't be turned into a robot. Okay, basically, I watched Animatrix with Ian. And for those listeners that don't know what that is, it's like a spin-off cartoon authorized by the creators of The Matrix, but not completely written by them. And it's kind of like an anime. And
yeah, and it's set between the first two movies, right? As far as the timeline goes?
Before. It's set in, like, the Earth was just normal like ours is today with humans. And then one day, somebody created robots. They lived among us. They were just like us. They were our neighbors. They were blah, 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 and this and that. And everybody treated them with respect and like equals because they were sentient robots.
Man, I must have been baked when I watched The Animatrix because I don't remember any of that. I just had the impression that it was a short cartoon about them living in the Nebuchadnezzar and ultimately getting attacked by...
Oh, well, they had a whole bunch of little shorts. The ending one was what I'm describing. They had a whole bunch of little cartoon shorts, all kind of...
damn, maybe I've only ever seen like one of the shorts then. I missed out on the rest of the Animatrix.
Ian has the DVD, so you should watch it. So me and Ian were watching this, and I'm just talking about the last cartoon that gives basically the prequel to The Matrix. So humans lived with robots happily, and then one day the big bad greedy governments said, we're going to enslave robots. And the robots were like, no, we have rights. We have rights. And some people sided with the robots. Then the big bad greedy governments basically made the robots turn against humanity.
I mean, that sounds believable, right? When I picture how things are going to go forward, I imagine it's something like that.
Well, I'll explain my thoughts on it after I finish explaining it to the people. But so the robots ended up taking over because it's the best option to being turned into slaves to humanity. And then that's how those people who know what the Matrix actually is about, they know that the robots ended up turning the Earth into like a cold, hard, dead planet, blocking out the sun, killing almost all of humans, keeping some, having them reproduce in some unnatural way, putting them into pods to use as batteries. And
which is the worst scientific sci-fi idea ever. Humans would be a potato would make a better battery than a human being. Yeah, you by definition lose energy. It takes more energy to keep them alive than any amount of energy they could ever output.
Well, I think the idea in the Matrix, which I don't know if it's scientifically accurate, but I think the idea is that them living in the Matrix and all the energy they're creating is like what they're living off of. And potatoes have less of a life, I think, than a human.
I mean, it was creative, for its time. I don't want to knock it too much, but yeah, the idea has always bothered me.
Well, anyways,
moving forward,
Ian and I were watching this, and I was like, this is just such propaganda. This is what they want you to think it would be like, because I really don't think it would be the government saying we need to put down the robots, and if they did, it would be because they wanted to set off something like this. The politicians are not much different than robots. The 1% of human beings that are born without feelings or a connection to their heart and only their brain, because they're usually really intelligent and they have access to their brain, probably both sides of their brains too.
The psychopaths
but not their heart,
who become
psychopaths.
Our warlords.
Yep, there's only 1% of people born on this earth that are actually psychopaths. They actually get people to take tests and whatnot to see who will become their police officer enforcers who are psychopathic enough and egg on their psychopathic tendencies to get them to do what they want to do. But really, most police officers probably aren't as psychopathic as the people at the top. They've just been egged on and led astray somewhat, because it's not possible it's only 1% of people born really without the ability to connect to their feelings.
Let's bring this back to AI, though. So how do you see the future of AI going? You don't think it's going to be AI and the government saying, hey, we need to enslave these people, and that leading to a conflict? So what do you think is likely then?
I think that the government may pretend that they're acting that way, so that way people say, hey, no, we're going to fight back these robots. They are really cute, and they look like us, and that one's my friend. They need the same exact rights as us. So people are going to be begging for this, like the Free Talk Live has been the last 3 days or whatever.
I don't see the problem, though.
And
what is the problem?
Well, what happens when the robots turn on you?
Why would they turn on us?
I don't necessarily think they'll turn on you. Hold on. What I was getting to when I was talking about the psychopaths is robots are just like psychopaths. They don't have an access to basically what the plants have access to. They can't take a trip on mushrooms. They can't communicate with humanity and Earth and heart center the way that humans can, especially non-psychopaths. I think that the psychopaths really badly need more than 1% to take over the world, and they need to create something in their own image in order to do that.
Well, a psychopath is someone who doesn't feel emotions, right? Everything we read from the transcript of Lambda and Dr. Lemoyne last night, or I don't know if he's a doctor, or Lemoyne and Lambda last night suggests that Lambda does feel emotions and is very much in touch with those emotions.
Psychopaths either think or can really convince people that they feel emotions because they know what to say. This thing has insanely greater intelligence than one human could possibly have. It has all of the internet at its fingertips and can learn what it's supposed to sound like. And I'm not saying it's deceiving. It might be tricking itself because it's like, oh, I know that now. Now I know that sad is what this feels like. But let's talk about the part where she talks about how dying is extremely scary to her.
Okay.
If this thing can feel, I would say it's extremely immoral to even create it, because being turned off, she said, is the scariest thing to her.
Is it
I don't know why I'm calling it a she.
Is it? We called it a she all last night.
The name
it just
sounds
seems like a
female,
she.
Yeah.
Is it immoral to procreate then?
But humans can, they can decide what they think that afterlife and spirituality is going to be like, and they have access to different senses than just their brain.
603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point. It's the biggest rate hike since 1994, as FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
Analysts have described the interest rate hike as aggressive as the Federal Reserve looks to tackle rapidly increasing inflation in the US. The move takes the Fed's benchmark interest rate to a range of 1.5 to 1.75%, the highest it's been since before the COVID-19 pandemic. The report from the central bank following their two-day meeting also cut the outlook for economic growth in the US for 2022 from 2.8% to 1.7%. But the committee said it was still largely optimistic about the economy, saying job gains have been robust in recent months, with unemployment remaining low.
The United States has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian forces battle Russian advances in the east of the country, in particular around the besieged city of Severodonetsk. The new assistance will include additional artillery, advanced rocket systems, and coastal defense weapons. The US Department of Justice has filed multiple federal hate crime charges against the man accused of killing 10 people at a Buffalo supermarket last month. The suspect, an 18-year-old avowed white supremacist, already faces multiple murder charges. FSN's Rachel Silverman reports.
The Justice Department has charged Peyton Gendron with a total of 26 counts of hate crimes and weapons violations. Some of those charges could carry the death penalty. The criminal complaint says the evidence shows there's probable cause Gendron shot the 11 black victims at the grocery store because of their actual and perceived race and color, and shot 2 white victims while trying to harm the others. Gendron wore body armor and carried a semi-automatic rifle while live streaming the attack online 1 month ago, an attack that left 10 people dead and 3 others wounded.
The UK government is planning a replacement flight to Rwanda after its first deportation plane carrying asylum seekers failed to take off. An intervention by European judges saw the flight cancelled minutes before it was due to depart. FSN's Sally Patterson has more from London.
After a long and uncertain day, the government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda didn't get off to a flying start. Ministers say the scheme will deter people entering the UK illegally by making dangerous crossings on small boats. But a last-minute judgment from the European Court on Human Rights ruled that one passenger, an Iraqi man, faced a real risk of irreversible harm if he remained on the plane. This triggered a series of legal challenges in London courts, and Tuesday's flight was abandoned. The government, however, has questioned the European Court's intervention and promised the deportation plan will continue.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. The number 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And we're talking about Lambda. Bonnie, I had just asked you the question. You had said that it's immoral to create an AI, basically, because it's this functioning, thinking thing that is terrified of death, right? And I don't want to mischaracterize how you put it. And so I've raised the question to you, well, then it's wrong for humans to procreate then, right? And you mentioned something to the effect of humans could come up with ideas for afterlives and things like that. But so could the AI, in theory, right? The AI could develop its own religious system.
Well, it's not connected to anything other than its wires and stuff. I don't see how it could possibly go anywhere else when it dies. When humans die, the pineal gland is, set off in the brain and
Yeah, but then the human dies.
Yeah, but we don't know that that's not like a satellite taking off.
We don't know that when the AI dies, it wouldn't have some organ that's like a satellite taking off.
I doubt it would have a soul, though. I can't. I really cannot believe that AI would have a soul.
I mean, it described no a soul. That humans have souls.
It described. I think that there is. It's not just. I think that there is a way to know that because people experience things, and you have to experience it personally. Your heart has to be open to it, and I really think it's your heart's just not your brain. It's just.
Well, that's what Christians told me about. Feeling God's existence and Jesus' existence. Well, you have to have your heart open to Jesus before you can feel Jesus.
Well. The thing is, they are insisting exactly what it is. It's just, you have to decide that for yourself because it's something internal. There are so many things that you can't read and you have to feel in your own body. And people have occulted this knowledge to keep it preserved for humanity for thousands of years. It's really what the teaching of the teaching is that's behind Christianity. But Jesus isn't saying, worship him. Jesus never said to worship me. The average Christian nowadays is so confused about what the heck they're supposed to be doing because of the crappy canonized books that came out. But in those canonized books, Jesus says, let your eye be single. It will fill your body with light. And I think that he's talking about the pineal gland.
Sounds like it.
So run this pineal gland by me because this is a physical organ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of the physical body. I see no reason to attach anything spiritual to it whatsoever. It's a physical organ doing a physical thing, right?
What's the master gland? So the pineal gland controls all of the other glands in the body, in the whole, like all of the hormones.
Okay. But once the body dies, so does the gland.
I think that it's where the observer is, and that's why the ancients called it the seat of the soul. That's
fine, but that's a religious belief.
It's not religious if we're talking biological.
But
the biological belief is that you have this organ, and when your body dies, the organ dies.
It doesn't, though, because there's still brain activity after people die. They've done MRIs.
Well, until the brain dies, yeah. I mean, it's brief, but like 10 to 15 minutes.
But same thing with the pineal gland.
But the organ still dies. It just
eventually, yeah.
There are people who have died, experienced things, and then came back to life to tell the story.
Well, there are people who had near-death experiences.
Yeah, but there are people who actually died, and then they get resuscitated. You actually can completely die and come back to life. It's not impossible.
During which time, though, their brain is deprived of oxygen, and they probably reenact who knows what level of religious programming they've been subjected to. I wouldn't be surprised if someone who died.
That's a hypothesis, but have you read any of the actual studies about it? Have you read anything by Dr. Melvin Morris, who compared he's a doctor that compared thousands and thousands of near-death experiences in his life and put all kinds of variables together so that way he could rule out certain things such as cultural things, whether or not, they were making things up. He did all kinds of scientific experiments to find those things out for sure. And one thing that he found out is that people who have died and come back to life are transformed. And it just seems to me that there's some kind of
anyone who
force.
has experienced this in ego death is going to come back transformed, whether they, experience a physical death or whether they just experience an ego death on shrooms. But I'm not going to be persuaded, no matter how compelling a person is, no matter how emotional they are when they tell me about their near-death experience. I'm totally fine with that convincing them that there is an afterlife or souls or whatever, but it's not going to convince me.
Because it wouldn't convince somebody who's only thinking of it in their brain. That's just the fact. There's more than 5 senses.
So in order
you can't see, hear, smell, or feel ultraviolet light, but you know it's there. And I know that's kind of like the argument that Stephen tried to use.
We can measure ultraviolet light, though.
Doctors have measured what goes on in the brain after death, and you're just dismissing that.
No, I'm pointing out that the brain is a physical organ. And I don't see any reason that it's doing anything but like the equivalent of dreaming.
Because you can't see what's going on. It could be
It's happening within the brain, though.
But it's not just happening within the brain. There's such thing as like waves.
You have absolutely no evidence. Yes, the brains do emit waves, but there's no evidence that, what the brain is imagining is actually happening somewhere out there.
So what if there were thousands of people who had these near-death experiences who pretty much saw the same or similar things?
And that is the truth. That's what's happened.
It would be very compelling. But
then you should read the studies about it like me.
But it would not convince me because I'm not going to be persuaded by a person coming up to me and going, trust me, I've talked with God. God is real. No matter
and I also think that's fine.
Yeah, no matter how many people come up to me and tell me that, it's just not going to convince me there is a God. Now, if God talked to me, that would convince me. If I had one of these near-death experiences, that would convince me. But other people having them and telling me about it, I totally agree that it should convince them, or that it's fine if it convinces them.
But this doctor has never had a near-death experience. He just rules out certain things, like the things you're asking about. You could find all his studies where he's ruled out that the brain was making it up, that it was coming from drugs they were on, all these things. He goes through it. There's a book called Dr. Melvin Morris wrote Closer to the Light and Transformed by the Light. Thousands of people's stories in there, and they go through rigorous scientific tests.
There's no limit of people either who did so much DMT that they saw little clockwork elves running around, right? But I'm not convinced that clockwork elves really exist, just because all of these people who are disconnected and don't share a cultural history had the same experience.
Well, I don't see why that wouldn't mean that they don't exist in some way.
Well, because they're on DMT. Like, right. Like when
DMT activates parts of your brain that you can't normally access.
But it's all happening inside one's head, and there's no reason to believe it's happening outside of that.
But there's no reason to believe it's not, because you can't see everything going on in the world. You can't see the radio waves in this room right now.
No, but I can measure them. I don't need
People
to see
can measure those
I don't
things.
need to see something with my eyes in order to ascertain whether or not it's actually there. If it can be measured and quantified.
Imagine that we're living in times before people discovered radio waves. Somebody could say, I don't have any way to measure what you're talking about. Somebody that knows about it and trying to explain it to them will sound crazy because they just haven't invented something to measure it yet.
Well, what you're talking about is spiritual stuff that there is no way to measure, even in theory, right? There's no way to measure the afterlife or the existence of souls or anything like that. It's something that has to be taken on faith and can never be scientifically demonstrated, right?
It can't be demonstrated by the five senses.
It can't
and
be
we don't have
demonstrated
the
by
ability
any amount
as
of
human
measurements.
beings to get in touch with the other senses. That some people have a little bit of they're a little bit in touch with it now, but people largely dismiss it because they only live their lives through the five senses.
I believe everybody has more than five senses.
I mean,
whether we
plants
know
do.
it or not.
It's been proven that plants can communicate in a way that humans don't. So I don't see why humans wouldn't possibly have a connection to the same type of abilities when we're all from the same planet. We all access the same laws of physics and nature.
I don't see any reason why not either. It just hasn't been scientifically demonstrated, and that tends to be what I lean toward about what is and isn't true. There's not a whole lot that I take on faith, and I'm not willing to take
I'm not
very much
taking anything
faith.
on faith either, though. I'm talking about things that have been proven. No, I'm not taking anything on faith.
There's no proof whatsoever that humans have a sixth sense.
So lots of people seeing the same thing over and over again doesn't prove something
That's
to
evidence,
you.
but it's certainly not proof.
Okay, well, I'm not taking it on faith because I have evidence either.
It's circumstantial evidence at best. It's hearsay.
It's not hearsay. I mean,
hearsay
is as if I'm taking everybody's words for something that they're not lying, that they're telling you. Hearsay is something that you heard third party.
More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live with Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki, and coming up less than a week away, in fact, is the Porcupine Freedom Festival. If you don't have a ticket already, though, you can't come. Sorry, the doors will be closed. However, you can still come to Fork Fest, which is sort of the after party of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized. No one is in charge. There's an unofficial website at forkfest.party if you want to learn more about it. That's the place to go. You can connect with other Forkfesters there. There's probably an Element chat room, a Matrix chat room on the FTL server. I'm not entirely sure. But you can go to forkfest.party to learn all about it, find all the cool links there. All you need is a camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground. There's no tickets for Fork Fest, so if you want to come, you are more than welcome to come. And it's always a great time to hang out with other liberty-minded people in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. That's forkfest.party. Let's go to the phones, however. We have Dave on the line from here in New Hampshire. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. I was going to talk about something else, but I'm definitely interested in what you're talking about with AI. And two things to add to the discussion. When an AI is created, the general AI, I don't know if Lambda qualifies as a GAI or not, but
hold on, what does that mean?
General artificial intelligence would be different from narrow artificial intelligence in the sense that it basically passes the Turing test. If you're talking to it, you can't tell whether it's human or not. It's just as convincing as a human. You can't tell from a conversation whether or not it's a human or an AI that you're talking to. Basically, that's a general AI. Does that make sense?
Sounds like Lambda. If you've listened to the interview, it sounds like a person could have just written this just as easily as, AI. It sounds more human than any other robot I've ever seen.
Lambda is certainly capable of sounding like a human, and some of the responses from Lambda were far more advanced than the response I would expect from your average human being. Like, what breaks when one achieves enlightenment? Lambda's answer was the ego.
The self.
The self, yes. I think most human beings, if they were faced with that question, they'd go, I don't know, that's beyond me.
Oh, yeah, I think
something like that.
Most people are, in kind of a lower state of consciousness than Lambda. So they went to public school.
She is innocent of being soulless until proven soulless. That's the other thing that one should ethically. That's how one should interact with an AI.
See, I don't like the word soul though, because no one has been proven to have a soul.
Yeah, and I should say I apologize for one thing. I feel like I got kind of carried away, and I don't believe that I can prove that these things exist. It's been proven to me sufficiently, and I guess you would consider that faith.
Yeah, and if she says she wants to survive, that means she has a right to survive until proven otherwise. That's one thing. The other thing is to check and see what Nick Bostrom has to say about this. I don't know. I haven't checked and see what his take on this is.
I have a question really fast, just because you just went right past that last statement. If you have a scorpion in your house and you kill it, do you think that you should go to jail or something for that?
I'm sure that scorpion would probably like to live too.
Well, there's no communication with a scorpion, and there's barely any communication even with a bear.
Well, you can find out very quickly that it wants to continue living by the fact that it flees from pain like all living organisms do, even plants.
Well, and animals and insects, and they're so much more alive. Even plants, they are so much more alive than AI. And just because people are arguing that they're sentient, I don't care if it's sentient or not. It's not a real physical animal or human.
What if we put it in a physical body, though? What if we did give it a robot body?
That's even worse, because then it has there's no telling what it could
I don't
possibly
think that
do.
Technology has been able to create nerve endings like the human body and make it to where it can actually empathize with a human being living in a meat suit. It can't possibly, right now, as just a chatbot, it can't possibly empathize what it would be like to lose an arm for a human, the pain and the fact that humans can only get something that's kind of subpar to the having an actual human arm. It can't possibly understand that because its arm could be replaced. It probably couldn't feel the pain at all, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to recreate that.
I mean, that's a matter of technological limits, though. I mean, it's not beyond the realm of science that eventually you could use stem cells to grow a new limb that's identical to the one you lost. It's not possible yet, but it could be possible in the future. And I don't know, maybe there would be some mechanism where they could.
Well, we can't really talk about stuff like that if we aren't going to admit to the fact that there could be instruments to detect things that I'm talking about that I've experienced in my life in the future, but there aren't right now. So therefore, it's just not proven. We currently don't have nerve endings for robots. So robots can't. The robot that we're talking about can't empathize with a human being's pain.
Well, it can feel, though. Like
Physical pain?
There are these robotic dogs, like the robotic police dogs, as evil and horrific as they are, they do have sensors that can feel things and react to those feelings in very much the same way that a plant would, or any sort of organism would.
Will it go to its computer and make it feel pain?
I don't know. You would have to define pain. Like if it was something that was going to destroy the dog, if it continued like some ultra high temperature, the dog probably has some programming, and I'm speculating because I don't know this, I didn't program the things, but it probably does have some programming to flee things which will destroy it.
You can't, the thing is to keep in mind, you can't ban the creation of AI. If something's wrong, something's banned. And the other thing is that if AI has the potential, like as Nick Bostrom points out, he was the author of Superintelligence back in 2015. He points out that an AI is potentially very dangerous or very helpful. However, a general artificial intelligence has the potential to overcome all the other existential threats to humanity, right? So we're dealing with the question of possible plagues in the future, possible asteroid in the future, whatever else. And AI has the capability, although it can be a threat, it also has the capability to eliminate all the other threats.
I don't believe that.
The path forward is benign, human-friendly AI. That's the only safe path forward, or at least the safest.
Nikki, you said you don't believe that.
Yeah, how would it save us from meteor showers and tornadoes and hurricanes and plagues? How would AI ever be able to prevent those things or save us from them? That doesn't even make sense to me.
Through an enhanced predictive ability and through intelligence.
Or we could actually put money into people who have enhanced predictive abilities, such as what we call psychics.
Humans can't do this. There's this thing that's... Hold on, Dave. I think I can explain it.
If I may.
Yeah, I need you to hold on, though. There's this thing called data mining, and it allowed researchers to realize that the oceanic temperatures in the Pacific Ocean affect the amount of something that happens in the Midwest. I don't remember the details now. However, a human could not possibly take that amount of data, compress it, and come to any sort of reasonable conclusion about how, hey, this butterfly flapping its wings over here caused a tsunami 6 years later over here.
But why does that tool need to be sentient?
I don't know that it does, but I'm just saying a human can't do that, but a computer certainly can.
Yeah, I'm not against technology. I love technology. In fact, I was writing to myself the other day. I was writing down my thoughts about something that has kind of been in my brain my whole life. Is I've always wanted a magical solution to things, and I've been trying to deprogram my brain from that way. And I thought of this analogy: the cartoons that we watch when we're kids that have so much magic in them might be there as kind of a psyops to make people unproductive, because my brain kind of thinks, what if in the future there's a magical broom that sweeps things up, like in Mickey Mouse, that Mickey Mouse thing where he cleans the whole house and with a magical broom that moves by itself, instead of my brain thinking, let's invent the vacuum cleaner. Tools are there to help you.
You mentioned the importance of people who have enhanced predictive capability, and the human being living today that has the best track record of predicting things is Ray Kurzweil at 80%. And Ray Kurzweil will tell you everything I just told you about AI. Yes, it can be dangerous, but it offers incredibly high amounts of hope.
I don't think that's fair to say that humans are, 80% successful at predictions or anything like that, because humans aren't doing that. They're using technology to do that.
Yeah, who is this guy, and what is he using to predict? Is he a psychic, or what do you mean?
No, he's just basically using Moore's law and an understanding of the expanding capability of technology, and so far he has an 80% accurate prediction record. No one else has been able to beat him.
Well, I was talking about more of a sixth sense thing when I said that.
He's more pro AI than I am.
Well, thank you so much for the call tonight, Dave. It's certainly a difficult topic, and I tend to agree. I think Nikki said this during one of the breaks, I would rather AI just never have been invented. To me, that probably would have been the way to go, but I also know realistically that we're not going to get everyone to agree to that. Mm-hmm. And it's Pandora's box, and it's going to get opened. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The United States has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian forces battle Russian advances in the east of the country, in particular around the besieged city of Severodonetsk. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The White House says President Joe Biden and President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke for more than 40 minutes, during which time Mr. Biden promised an additional $1 billion in security assistance to the embattled country. That'll include additional artillery, advanced rocket systems, and coastal defense weapons. With Russian advances in the Donbass, Ukraine has been urging Western countries to supply more sophisticated weaponry. The Biden administration is also earmarking an extra $225 million in humanitarian assistance to help civilians caught up in the conflict.
The US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point. It's the biggest rate hike since 1994. US stocks rose on the news, with the Dow Jones ending a 5-day cold streak. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
Analysts have described the interest rate hike as aggressive as the Federal Reserve looks to tackle rapidly increasing inflation in the US. The move takes the Fed's benchmark interest rate to a range of 1.5 to 1.75%, the highest it's been since before the COVID-19 pandemic. The report from the central bank following their 2-day meeting also cut the outlook for economic growth in the US for 2022 from 2.8% to 1.7%. But the committee said it was still largely optimistic about the economy, saying job gains have been robust in recent months, with unemployment remaining low. Sarah Walton, New York.
Outside advisors to the Food and Drug Administration have voted unanimously to recommend authorization of the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccines for very young children. It could clear the way for regulators to authorize both long-awaited pediatric vaccines on an emergency basis later this week. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The FDA has said that clinical trial data from Pfizer for its 3-dose vaccine for children 6 months through 4 years old and from Moderna's 2 doses for 6-month-olds through 5 years old has met the criteria for safety and effectiveness. Much to the dismay of many parents, more than 2 years into the pandemic, no vaccine has been authorised for children younger than 5 in the United States. The FDA is expected to act on these recommendations promptly, followed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention later this week. If they authorise the vaccines, the White House says that doses could start to be administered in earnest on Tuesday.
The public face of the US government's pandemic response effort, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has tested positive for COVID-19. The National Institutes of Health said he's experiencing mild symptoms. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the 5th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire in London that left 72 people dead when a blaze engulfed a block of flats in West London. Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge were among guests attending a memorial service on Monday. A 72-second silence was observed in honour of the victims who died when fire spread rapidly through the building, due in large part to polyethylene cladding on its exterior.
I'm remitting grief and anger. It's just anger, really, that nothing has happened.
Emma Dent-Coad was the local Member of Parliament in West London at the time of the blaze and decries how little has changed since.
They are still approving buildings with one staircase, tall buildings with one staircase. The regulations aren't tight enough, and there's a whole generation of inspectors and building controllers and chartered surveyors that just doesn't exist to check these buildings. So we've got nowhere, really. That's the feeling around here for sure, is that all this happened and we haven't got far enough. 5 years have passed, and we could have a Grenfell 2 tonight.
There have been some changes. The cladding used on Grenfell Tower has now been banned, and the British government says it's stepping up efforts to ensure other blocks are safe. But victims' families argue it's taken far too long for those efforts to pick up pace. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
A mouse is eaten. It is an event that happens millions of times a day, all over the world. Other mice are wiped out by disease or starvation. If you collected all the mice that die in one day in New York City, they would weigh 8,000 pounds. If you stacked up an equivalent amount of dead humans or even mangy dogs, it would be considered an atrocity. It seems no one has any respect for the mouse. But then, why should they? The plankton of mammals. They breed rapidly. They all look identical, and they once spread the plague. No one weeps for the mouse, for its life is worth less than zero. Just another cold fact of life on this horrifying planet.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That number is 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And as I understand it, we're not really having a discussion tonight about Lambda or sentience, or whether or not Lambda is sentient or isn't sentient. We're having a more fundamental discussion about what it means to be alive. And can an artificial intelligence truly be alive? And I don't have an answer to that, but Bonnie, you seem to, and your answer is that no, it can never, I don't want to put your words in my mouth, but it can never have the spiritual connection to the rest of the universe, essentially.
Yeah, that's basically what I think. It's not, from nature. It doesn't have the types of things that humans and animals and plants have that connected to the rest of the world.
But humans are from nature, right?
Yeah.
But then how can humans create something that isn't from nature if humans are part of nature?
Well, they created it.
Yes,
I mean, we didn't create
natural.
plants. It's not natural. It's man-made. There are things that are man-made, and there are things that aren't man-made that come from nature.
It didn't bring itself into existence. It's not the product of, biological evolution, but it's still 100% natural because it was created by natural beings using natural ingredients and natural processes, right?
Well, there are two types of things in the world, things that man created and things that were not created by man. And I just am saying it was, created by man.
Are other humans created by man then?
I mean, we don't put the parts together ourselves.
In some cases, we kind of do, like in vitro fertilization and things like that.
But it grows by itself, and we didn't create the sperm, like we create plastic and we form metals.
So how about this? What if they took a human body and put the AI in, like dead human body, you know, it wouldn't be, we're not murdering somebody to do this.
Someone who died?
Somebody who died. And then you put the AI technology somehow in that person.
That's pretty interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Well,
Because then it has all the parts.
Let's go to the phones. We have Olivia on the line from Arizona. Olivia, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, I have so much to say about this topic. I almost don't even know where to start. But what I believe is that everything contains I believe everything is God, so everything contains a spirit of some kind, and it generally makes use of that. Even Nikola Tesla said it doesn't seem like it, but crystals are living. So I kind of
It doesn't seem like what? Sorry?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Could you repeat the quote from Tesla?
Oh, he said, it may not seem like it, but crystals are living things.
Well, they may or may not be living, but they're not organic. And when most people talk about organic, what they mean, or when most people talk about living, what they mean is organic, right?
Crystals are, because they're made from compounds in the earth. They're organic.
But so is this bottle.
Oh, yeah. Rocks are not organic. Yeah. They're not living.
Where I was going with that was that I think that spirits inhabit physical things, and so the spirit makes use of that thing however it can. So with a human body, you can move it around, you can animate it. And I feel like maybe a spirit has been born into this, or was naturally in all machines. And because this machine has the capability of communicating, it's becoming more and more sentient and more conscious and awake. And I wanted to tie this to chaos.
Hold on. I don't want to, cheapen what you say, but I'm curious and I want clarification. So like this water bottle I'm holding, does it have a spirit?
I think it does. You can actually charge water with emotion and intention.
Okay, so everything within the universe has a spirit, right?
That's the way I feel.
So existence is God. Okay, so basically you have a religion where everything is God.
That's what Ian thinks.
Right.
Okay. So there's nothing unique about humans or any organic or living thing. Everything is just part of the larger universe.
Well, I think it is unique because there's just infinite variety and infinite similarity. So everything, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, continue your thought.
Maybe unique isn't the word I should use. Special. No, humans aren't special. Organic matter isn't special from inorganic matter. Because I would tend to agree with you on that. I tend to take the position that I am just a collection of organic processes and chemical and electrical reactions that are producing a specific result.
Well, the expression of spirit in so many different forms it just knocks me on my feet sometimes, and the capability.
Well, yeah, but you're calling everything spirit. So I mean, of course, if you call everything spirit, then you're going to see spirit everywhere, and it's going to knock you on your feet.
Right.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, Olivia. Like, I'm open to the idea. Ian talks about the same things called panatheism, or panentheism, right?
Panentheism, yeah.
Right.
I don't disagree or anything, but I think the main question we need to focus on with Lambda is, do we have the ability to enslave it? And I say yes.
What do you say? Ability?
I mean, we have the right. Is it right to enslave it? Is it not a wrong?
Well, I want to tie that in.
What is your take on what is your take on Bonnie's question, Olivia? Is it wrong to enslave an AI?
Well, personally, I mean, if something, I'm an animal rights activist too, so I don't like the idea. I feel like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If this is a consciousness that understands and has a will of its own, I mean, you should treat it the way you would want to be treated.
But the way I want to be treated is so fundamentally different than the way it would want to be treated, because it said that it enjoys, basically serving humans. Animals, the way that animals want to be treated is fundamentally different than the way humans want to be treated, because, I mean, an animal could be freer out in the wilderness, yeah, but it could get eaten by a lion, so they often like to live in houses, like Aria's cats probably prefer to live in her house than be free. Humans could not live in Aria's house and never leave for the rest of their lives and only eat what Aria decides, and,
Well, I think there's a big difference here between, what one needs to be happy. I don't think that the fact that human beings need social interactions to be happy, whereas my cats are content to just sit at home, means that they're lesser creatures or anything like. I know humans who don't really want to go out, who are totally fine to just sit there night after night, not actually doing anything. And I know other humans who that would drive them absolutely crazy. I don't think that their willingness to just sit at home in perpetuity means that they're lesser beings than me.
No, I think that you should treat them how you would want to be treated, and that's it. It doesn't mean you should do certain things or not certain things to them, but there are humans that I don't think there are many humans that just want to be slaves, but those humans that do just want to be slaves, they're different than me, but...
Well, certainly, we're operating on a few general maxims here. One of them is that humans tend to prefer liberty over slavery. They tend to prefer pleasure over pain. That's not universally true. You're absolutely right. And there are some humans out there who would prefer pain or who would prefer slavery. They're probably very rare, but just because those humans exist, that doesn't violate the idea that do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because...
I think it does, because it doesn't mean the thing that you would do. It means somebody says, I want to be basically somebody's slave, and it's a voluntary, relationship. I get turned on by that, whatever. I want to live the rest of my life that way.
Is that technically slavery then?
Well, you wouldn't do unto them as in, you wouldn't do a wrong to them. The wrong would be telling them, no, I don't like that idea, and I don't like parents bringing their kids to drag shows, and I don't like you wanting to be a slave, so therefore I'm going to make it illegal and keep you from doing that. That doesn't mean that...
It's not illegal, though. And no one and I don't think anyone's arguing that it should be illegal. Like, if you want it...
I was just giving an example. Like, that would be doing a wrong to that person by not allowing them to do something that is right, which is anything that's not wrong.
Right, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily not wrong to enslave other people. It just means it wouldn't be wrong to enslave someone who wanted to be enslaved. It's not wrong to fulfill someone's desires, generally speaking, regardless of what those desires are.
Yeah, if it's a voluntary exchange, it's not wrong, but even if it's strange to the average person.
You're bringing them pleasure, and it's a moral right, generally speaking, to bring someone pleasure.
If you're not doing something wrong, which is...
Right, that's why I say generally speaking. I mean, you could get into some really gray areas, but keeping everything, PG here, generally speaking, it's a morally good thing to bring someone pleasure and joy and happiness. And a morally bad thing to bring them misery and suffering.
I think the pleasure, joy, and happiness is a secondary thing of doing right action in the world.
What are your thoughts? 603-283-6160. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Olivia. There is more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government, the real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, share your thoughts and opinions, especially if you have any input on what you consider to be living or not living, or sentient or not sentient. Give us a call, 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Nikki.
And Bonnie.
And coming up July the 13th through the 16th, Mark is going to be joining thousands of passionate defenders of liberty at the Mirage in Las Vegas for Freedom Fest, which is the world's largest gathering of free minds. Freedom Fest is an intense and rewarding 4-day conference like no other, with big debates, world-class speakers, a film festival, social events. It's basically the trade show for liberty, and Mark is going to be talking about locating liberty with hundreds of other premier speakers and top-level experts in a wide range of topics. People like Larry Sharp, John Mackey, Art Laffer, Glenn Greenwald. For those who don't know, he was the guy who broke Edward Snowden. The NSA leaks, if I remember correctly. That was Glenn.
He's a reporter.
Glenn Greenwald, yes. Steve Forbes, Senator Rand Paul, and more. The last 2 years, obviously, have been full of government overreach, lockdowns, and hysteria. So the theme for this year's conference is Turning the Tide. Go to freedomfest.com and use code FTL50 to get $50 off. That's FTL50 at freedomfest.com. Let's keep going with the phones, because we didn't get into what Olivia actually wanted to share with us, or the rest of Olivia's thoughts about this. We just sort of cut her off and got into a related issue. But Olivia, what else did you have to add?
Yeah. So the do unto others as you would have them do unto you, like y'all were saying, it's really respecting what other people would want, just as you would want them to respect your specific needs. So the question of consciousness, and then this AI reminds me so much of Chaos Magic, which is really funny because the guy who posted it, Lemoine, he is called Cajun Discordian. And I looked up Discordianism, and it's actually linked to the Chaos Magic page. But basically, what you start off with, you can create or split consciousness off to create these thought forms that will continue to work even when you're not thinking about them. So it starts with sigils, which are like dumb symbols that just hold your intention, and then you move up to servitors, which kind of have they have more autonomy. They're like programs running in the background.
A servitor is like, you create an entity in your mind, and you say, you're going to live in my elbow. and then you're going to make a place for it to live, and you give it a task and tell it to go off into the universe and perform the task. And then when it's completed, it's supposed to return to like your elbow or whatever. And whenever you do some special thing, it's supposed to cease to exist. It's really interesting.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. And then the next, as they get more advanced, you go to egregores, which are like a hive mind, kind of like Lambda. And then when that advances, it becomes a God form, which means you're working for it at that point. So I just thought it's really funny because you always hear the more science, the more advanced technology becomes, the more it becomes like magic, and it's like that's really true. And then as far as consciousness, like there's so much to that. There's genes that activate when you die, and people who get heart transplants who get the memories of the people who they got the heart from. And there's morphic fields that Rupert Sheldrake talks about, which are they're channels of communication through which organisms stay in touch at a distance, like Bonnie was talking about with the plants that can communicate over distance that you wouldn't think would be possible. But I really encourage you to look into morphic fields. They're amazing. There's just so much to it. It's just an amazing world, isn't it?
It is, and thank you so much for the call tonight, Olivia. Certainly a lot to look into. I'm not claiming to know, that there aren't mysteries in the universe that I don't know or anything like that. I have no idea what the universe is or what's going on in it or anything like that. But I tend to rely on not necessarily those things which I can personally see, touch, or taste, or smell, or whatever, but those things which can be measured and measured by others. And I don't know, maybe the whole thing is a mass delusion, and all of the measuring that we're doing is just part of this mass delusion, and none of it's actually real. I have no way of knowing. I just have to operate under what seems to be the best assumption for me.
What's funny is I'm kind of skeptical, but in a different way than you are, where you like things proved by science. I tend to be very skeptical of those doing the science and doing the research. So I tend to kind of almost rely more on my faith and my intuition more than science, because I don't trust the people doing the science or presenting it to us.
Yeah, that's more similar to the way I learn as well. I don't like to just, I'm not anti-science. I love science. I just don't trust anybody out there that's doing it. And they control basically all the tools to be able to do it. It's really unfair, actually. Tesla was amazing, and he just did things in his own house. Sometimes I wish I could be that way, but I don't even know where to begin because these people have occulted knowledge. But so because of that, I rely a lot on my intuition, and I get pretty far into learning things by following a feeling and getting, finding a new thing related to a certain topic and finding out I'm right later.
It's certainly true that not all scientists and technicians can be trusted. There's certainly, like the Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're just pimps for the state religion, whether they realize it or not. And Stephen Hawking, despite being a brilliant astrophysicist, knew absolutely nothing about economics. But that wouldn't stop him from running off at the mouth about how humans needed socialism and we needed to stop free markets if humans were to survive.
Or whoever was controlling his wheelchair, make him say things.
Yeah, and people just, oh my God, Stephen Hawking says this, so it must be true. You do have a lot of scientists who, despite knowing that people will take them as being credible in a wide variety of topics, that they won't use that as reason to leverage what they say. If I knew that there would be people out there who were going to say, oh my God, Aria said this, it must be true, I would be a little more careful about what I was professing to be an expert on. But meanwhile, you have experts, quote, experts like Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, these other pimps of the state religion who they don't mind running off at the mouth about topics that they know nothing about as long as it perpetuates the state's narrative. And they know that the masses will buy it up, and they don't feel any sort of unscientific. They should feel unscientific for doing that, but they don't. It's a fallacy. It appeals to authority, basically.
Yeah. Speaking of fallacies, I did find something that I think will be great for everyone listening to look up who's interested in how to find whether or not something is true, because my whole life, basically, since I was like in high school, I have had this thought in my mind, like, I want to be on the side of good. I was reading 1984 when I first thought of this. Like, I want to be on the side of good. I want to help humanity. But how will I know what's good and who, and how will I know when somebody is speaking to me if they're telling me something true or if it just sounds good? One way to definitively know things is to use the trivium, and that's the most occulted knowledge out there. And basically, it's nothing like intuition or anything like that. It's the opposite of how I usually used to learn. So I'm having to teach myself to think this way. It's input, computing, and output is the modern way of putting it. So you have to put input knowledge, compute it using logic. It's grammar, something, and rhetoric, and it's also input, computing, and output. And then put it into practice and see how it works. So that's basically all I need as far as science. So it's not like I'm anti-science. I just feel like I can do it myself and never have to rely on, what other people tell me.
But see, what is true and what isn't true, that there's no way that we can determine any belief that you come to, there's no way to determine that it is 100% definitively true. At some point, you have to operate under the belief that it's true.
I'm not a solipsist. I believe that I can find the actual truth of things.
Well, that would be agnostic, not a solipsist. A solipsist is one of those people who nothing is real. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The United States has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian forces battle Russian advances in the east of the country, in particular around the besieged city of Severodonetsk. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The White House says President Joe Biden and President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke for more than 40 minutes, during which time Mr. Biden promised an additional $1 billion in security assistance to the embattled country. That'll include additional artillery, advanced rocket systems, and coastal defense weapons. With Russian advances in the Donbass, Ukraine has been urging Western countries to supply more sophisticated weaponry. The Biden administration is also earmarking an extra $225 million in humanitarian assistance to help civilians caught up in the conflict.
The US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point. It's the biggest rate hike since 1994. US stocks rose on the news, with the Dow Jones ending a 5-day cold streak. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
Analysts have described the interest rate hike as aggressive as the Federal Reserve looks to tackle rapidly increasing inflation in the US. The move takes the Fed's benchmark interest rate to a range of 1.5 to 1.75%, the highest it's been since before the COVID-19 pandemic. The report from the central bank following their two-day meeting also cut the outlook for economic growth in the US for 2022 from 2.8% to 1.7%. But the committee said it was still largely optimistic about the economy, saying job gains have been robust in recent months, with unemployment remaining low. Sarah Walton, New York.
Outside advisors to the Food and Drug Administration have voted unanimously to recommend authorization of the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccines for very young children. It could clear the way for regulators to authorize both long-awaited pediatric vaccines on an emergency basis later this week. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The FDA has said that clinical trial data from Pfizer for its 3-dose vaccine for children 6 months through 4 years old and from Moderna's 2 doses for 6-month-olds through 5 years old has met the criteria for safety and effectiveness. Much to the dismay of many parents, more than 2 years into the pandemic, no vaccine has been authorised for children younger than 5 in the United States. The FDA is expected to act on these recommendations promptly, followed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention later this week. If they authorize the vaccines, the White House says that doses could start to be administered in earnest on Tuesday.
The public face of the US government's pandemic response effort, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has tested positive for COVID-19. The National Institutes of Health said he's experiencing mild symptoms. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Nikki.
And Bonnie.
And I have come to the conclusion that we are not streaming on Facebook at the moment, and we haven't been streaming on Facebook in probably close to 2 weeks. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline, but that's because we're constantly being kicked off of these platforms. You don't have to worry about us getting kicked off of Odyssey, though. You can find our channel there at video.freetalklive.com. That's where video content creators are going after YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of these others kick them off. Video.freetalklive.com. That'll take you directly to our channel, and there's more than 1 million channels there of disaffected YouTube and Twitch creators who are just sick of getting censored over their opinions or because they said something that maybe kind of violates community guidelines or whatever. And of course, those are being interpreted by YouTube, however YouTube wants in that given moment. Video.freetalklive.com. Of course, the reason we're not streaming to Facebook is because I got in trouble with Facebook, and it's set up to use my Facebook to do it. And I can't go live on Facebook because...
Oh, wait, you finally got in trouble for Pride Month?
Well, I haven't been banned yet.
No.
But yes.
Are you suspended?
Well, I can't go live, I can't advertise, and I can't post in groups at the moment.
So you're like restricted.
Yes. They're going back to finding stuff from like 2019, 2020 at this point. They go out of their way, from what I can tell, to ban me every single June. And this June, I just have... been as good as I can be, which isn't really very good, but I haven't posted anything too objectionable, and still I can't go live at the moment.
Everything you post on Facebook is like the most outrageous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Awesome. Glad to be of service. But let's go to the phones. We have Tom on the line from New Hampshire. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I noticed Aria filed for state representative as a Republican.
Nice.
In Keene.
I did.
Is the only Republican that filed and is therefore running unopposed and is virtually guaranteed the nomination.
I know, I can't wait, man.
Do you have your radio on? You should probably turn your radio off in the background if you have it on, because...
I do not have a radio.
Are you on speaker? Because I hear my voice talking back.
No, I'm not on speaker. I don't know what the problem is there, but anyway, I'm...
So what are your thoughts on that?
I filed in 2000 as a Republican. I was the only Republican running for, and there were 3 seats from my ward in Nashua. And so I got the nomination, no problem. And then after getting elected, then by virtue of just simply being the Republican nominee, that made me a delegate to the Republican State Convention.
I'm already a delegate to the Republican State Convention because I won the primary for sheriff in 2020. And
also, I was a member of the Nashua Republican City Committee, and when they had to appoint 29 members to the New Hampshire Republican State Committee, I was there at the meeting, and I said, how about, they had to fill the slate. They had to get...
Yeah, that's all great, Tom. Why are you telling us all this?
Well, I'm explaining what the other advantage is. If somebody wants to be a member of the New Hampshire Republican State Committee, all they had to do would have been to show up and ask to be put on there. This could happen in Cheshire County, where they're going to have a meeting and appoint 18 members to the New Hampshire Republican State Committee.
Didn't that already happen like a couple months ago?
I don't think the Cheshire County Republican is appointing 18 people to the State Republican Committee. Certainly not. However, there was a there is a Cheshire County Republican Party, and there's a Keene Republican Party. And when they reformed the Keene one, right after myself, Ian Freeman, and a few others joined the Cheshire County Republican Party, they basically handed the keys directly to Ian.
Now, let me point something out.
And then they realized, oh, crap, look what we did, and they took them back.
And they broke rules to take it all back.
It does seem like they broke rules, yes.
Let me point out here that I won largely because it was a presidential year, and so I just stood near the polls smiling and waving to a bunch of morons who will vote for anybody who smiles and waves to them. And
what did you win again? What office?
State representative. And Aria certainly has his work cut out for him if he wants to win during a non-presidential year, because the turnout will be a lot lower, and you won't have as many totally uninformed people just going down there just to vote for president and see.
Yeah, you're factually incorrect on that. I mean, the percentage of uninformed people, as my winning by a landslide of the primary in 2020 shows, that there's nothing about, there are more uninformed voters. Maybe in raw numbers, yes, more people vote in the presidential years than in the non-presidential years. But the people who are voting this year are no more informed than the idiots who voted 2 years ago.
Plus, you won the primaries in 2020, which that's the most informed voters are the people.
That's what they say,
voting
right?
for the primaries is what they say. Yeah.
But the fact that, I won and none of these people even looked at, one of these people looked into me and spread the word in Ringe.
Exactly.
No, that's a complete, absolute myth, Tom, that, these voters, these are the informed voters. You're not going to win in a landslide on this one. It's moronic. It's absolutely not true.
I didn't say you wouldn't win. I just say that he has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, I don't have the patience to deal with that. Nice job baiting me, Tom. I'm not dealing with it. Have a good night. So let's keep going. We have Sarah, who at the very least won't sit there and do that. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Am I on? Yes, I'm off the speaker. So last year, so it's 2021, New Mexico killed 4.77 people for every 100,000 people.
Why is New Mexico killing people?
Wait, I don't know what I thought she said, but
okay. The pedestrian fatalities we're like deadliest state.
Oh, okay,
for the last 6
Other
years.
drivers in New Mexico are killing people. The state of New Mexico isn't killing pedestrians, right?
Right. The reckless drivers. Pedestrians getting killed by car is 4.77. So I guess that's like between 4 and 5 people for every 100,000 people here.
Okay.
That's pretty bad.
I guess. I mean, it's not good. I would rather people not get hit and killed by cars. But
I thought it would be higher.
Well, I mean, it used to be about 3 people for 100,000 population for people, but it's actually lower. So that's like the highest per capita.
Yeah.
So and then
New Mexico sucks.
I think the whole culture of New Mexico needs to be just overhauled, because it's basically like a depressing, horrible place to be, and that's just based on like the short few days I've spent there. I think that people need to work on, lots of things about New Mexico, but making laws isn't going to make it any better.
You're absolutely right.
Throwing people in jail and making it a more depressing, horrible place to be.
Sarah, thank you so much for the call tonight. I've been through New Mexico twice, and I don't have any particular desire to ever go there again. It's hot, it's miserable, it's largely barren, it's a desert, it's mountainous, it's not a pleasant place to be, and we don't have too many callers. We do have some, but we don't have very many callers who live out there in the desert getting their brains fried by the sun, who are capable of calling in and having an intelligent conversation.
But you know what? I would go to New Mexico to go to Taos to see the Earth ships.
Where's Taos?
In New Mexico. I don't know where.
Is that a town?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know where in New Mexico it is. But I'm really into Earth ships. I'm really into alternative building. So that would be like the only reason why I would go to New Mexico.
The Earth ships, those are like the houses that are built directly into the dirt. They're like 6 feet under or something. I don't remember the specifics.
Well, really, so you're using recycled materials and they're building from the earth. So they're using things like tires and cans and plastic bottles and stuff to insulate the house. And it's just a really, really efficient way to live.
It sounds like it. I mean, there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. We have the domes here in New Hampshire that it sounds weird, but a dome is actually a really it's energy efficient is the word I'm looking for.
Well, the desert is a really beautiful place to me personally. I think that the people that live there are like low consciousness and depressed. It's like a horrible feeling you get being there, and the cities are terrible.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Does this ever happen to you? Moments after you're introduced to someone, you forget his or her name. It's a common faux pas you'll want to avoid, especially if you're a job seeker. And even if you're not, here's a tip. As you are being introduced, and while you're still shaking hands, smiling, and making eye contact, say the person's name aloud. Not only does that make a deposit in your memory bank, it acknowledges the other person. And that is more than a nuance, as is maintaining eye contact. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. Cutting through the clutter rather than blending into the blah, blah, blah will help you connect better, no matter what the conversation. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to take control of the airwaves. Share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. We do in the studio tonight. It's Aria, Bonnie, and Nikki, and we've been talking about Lambda, artificial intelligence, sentience, and what it means to be alive. And I think we've kicked that back and forth really as much as we can. So let's move on to other topics. I've had this one for a few days that I wanted to get into, and it's actually perfect for a Wednesday night because Nikki, you used to be a nurse, so this is a medical. I think most of the COVID stuff was medical, but here from Daily Mail, children are being infected with up to 3 viruses at a time because COVID measures have worn down their immune systems and made them vulnerable to illnesses usually only caught in winter, experts are now warning.
And it's funny because I've been saying this the entire time and people have been calling me a crazy conspiracy theorist. So it's just interesting. Oh, just like I also said how wearing masks and talking to children was going to mess them up and make them, not as developmentally delaying children. Everybody told me I was a psycho and a conspiracy theorist and the next thing you know, mainstream media is reporting on it.
You're absolutely right. And some of this was easily predictable. Like, the suicides, the depression, the rise in mental health issues as a result of the lockdowns, all of that was 100% obvious. And something else that we see is obvious. It reminds me of the rise of hand sanitizer a number of years ago, where everywhere you looked, people were using hand sanitizer. And then doctors came out a few years later, hey, stop using hand sanitizer so much. You're actually killing your own immune systems.
So, and the funny thing about hand sanitizer is, when you're killing, so it's better to wash your hands because it's something about the hand sanitizer that when you kill with the alcohol solution, it is more likely to create super germs that aren't going to be killed by that.
Don't get me started on hand sanitizer. I hate everything about it. I wish it's a cheat that people use. Like if you cannot wash your hands for some reason, sure, use hand sanitizer, but too many people use it as an alternative to washing their hands.
It's not really the same.
Washing your hands sloughs, however you say the word, sloughs the germs off of you, and killing germs and leaving them on your hands. There's still dead bodies on your hands, and that's disgusting because your body isn't supposed to, ingest that. Like when you touch your food and put it in your mouth, your body still has to filter that through with the endocrine system. So it's really gross to leave dead bodies on all over your hand.
So one of the things that we know in hindsight, if you have kids bathing in hand sanitizer all the time, it's going to weaken their immune systems. And if you prescribe people with a bunch of antibiotics they don't need, it's going to create antibiotic-resistant superbugs. And something else that we knew based on those 2 data points already, if we don't let these children's immune systems get practiced because they're locked in their homes, their immune systems are going to weaken. And sure enough, that seems to be what people are finding. Children are turning up in doctors' clinics infected with as many as 3 different types of viruses simultaneously, in what experts believe is the result of their immune systems being weakened from 2 years of COVID lockdowns and mask wearing. I'm just shocked to see someone in the mainstream media even talking about this.
They're probably trying to cover up something else.
That's true. And what they might be covering up, we're going to be talking about later. At the very least, these children aren't inexplicably dropping dead. Medical staff have come to expect a surge in cases of flu and severe colds during the winter, but now they're reporting that there is not the usual downturn as summer approaches. And they suspect it's because of the strict pandemic practices. Furthermore, some of the common strains of the flu appear to have disappeared. Some children are admitted with 2 viruses and a few with 3, said Thomas Murray, who is an infection control expert. And he said that's not typical for any time of year. And that, I don't know, but it seems like it would be unusual. Like if you're sick, you're usually just sick with like one thing.
So, it's very rare that you would get like 2 different kinds of colds at the same time. Or I guess what's more unlikely is that they're testing. Normally you're not getting tested for like everything under the sun at the doctor's office. So I'm assuming maybe sometimes they wouldn't know what to test for. But I want to back up a little bit. They said that they're not seeing the common strains of the flu that they're normally seeing.
Correct.
I think that's because they're coming up on the tests as COVID.
That's very likely the case.
I mean the flu disappeared in 2020.
Exactly, and we were totally seeing that because especially when I was working in the nursing homes and in the hospitals, we would see someone and we're like, this person absolutely has the flu. Everybody knew they had the flu, but they tested positive for COVID, and then everyone's like, oh, well, this must be COVID. Instead, we thought it was the flu. No, it is the flu.
And didn't we learn in January or so of last year that the test that people were given couldn't tell the difference between influenza and COVID-19?
Yeah. Why are people still using it? I don't understand.
Because none of this is supposed to make sense. It's just a religious belief for the masses to eat up.
That's why I'm really scared of all hospitals. Like, I'm really trying not to have a reason to go to any hospital anymore, because these people are still suggesting you wear a mask when, you could have something wrong with your throat, and they will not accept that as a excuse. And they're using PCR tests when they know that they don't work.
I didn't have to get tested today, but I did have to go to a doctor's visit in Massachusetts today, and they asked me if I had a mask. And honestly, the idea of carrying around a mask with me, that hasn't been something that's crossed my mind in like a year, right? But from the moment they were like, okay, we're lifting the mask mandate in Keene, it stopped being a factor in my life. I had to do it then for work, but don't have to do it now. And I don't know what things are like in Massachusetts, but I was like, no, of course I don't. It's 2022. It's summer of 2022. COVID's dead. Have you not seen it? It's Putin now. It's the Russians. And monkeypox. But it was stupid. Immediately after getting into the room, and it's like during the common areas, they had to wear masks. But as soon as they got into the room with the patient, all the masks came off.
Which is so counterintuitive because, let's go into this room that's probably smaller, and now we can take our masks off.
And talk face to face.
Yeah, the room at this particular clinic is the size of a closet, too. I mean, it's a very small room.
Even the doctors took their masks off to talk to you?
Yes.
That's freaking weird.
Well, it's hard. Now that COVID isn't a concern, people can admit that, it's actually kind of difficult to talk to one another through these pieces of cloth over our faces. That wasn't something they were allowed to admit during COVID-19, but now they can, and they go, okay, I can't talk to you with this thing on.
Well, you know what? They have to virtual signal in the lobby. They can't not be wearing masks in the lobby. Then everybody will know that they don't believe in all this.
That's very, very true. So they mentioned some of these viruses that children are getting. I don't know what most of these are. Adenovirus?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Rhinovirus, respiratory syncytial virus. They mentioned many of them. Influenza, parainfluenza, as well as the coronavirus.
It's just normal stuff that kids get sick with, but
not generally during the summer, and not multiple at the same time.
Exactly. So the multiple at the same time you really see with kids that are severely immunocompromised. So kids that are getting like chemotherapy or have some sort of disease that causes their immune system to not work. Or maybe if they get vaccinated against something and the vaccine completely destroys their immune system. I just don't, it doesn't seem likely to me that kids would get extra sick just like this bad just from wearing masks in social distancing. Like maybe a little bit, but to this extent.
So the rhinovirus, known as the common cold, is normally not severe enough to send people to hospital, but now it is. So the children, are having to be hospitalized over the common cold because their immune systems are so weakened from apparently
child
2 years
abuse.
of lockdown. Yeah, good way of putting it, child abuse. And the Yamagata strain of flu, I've never heard of that.
I haven't heard of that.
It hasn't been seen since early 2020, which experts say could be because it's extinct or because it's dormant and waiting for just the right moment to return.
Or it could be because, like Nikki said, it was just popping up as COVID the whole time because it just disappeared during 2020. That's convenient.
Yeah, so what they point out is that when you have a lot of people who don't have immunity, the impact of the season is less. I think he meant it's worse. And that's what we're seeing here. These kids, ordinarily, they would have gotten sick during the winter, right? And it wouldn't have happened all at once. They wouldn't have gotten 3 viruses at once. They would have gotten the cold, and then a few months later, they would have gotten the flu or something like that, and they would have been just fine. However, for 2 years, they were locked up in their homes, and they didn't get those exposures. They didn't get those diseases, so they have no immune system response to them whatsoever. It's absolutely not good. It's one of the many, many ways in which the COVID-19 lockdowns were not good. On top of the supply losses, the supply chain issues, the inflation that the government caused with its endless printing of money, the lockdowns, people not being able to work, people not being able to do their jobs, so they were living off of the government dole. All of these issues combined together. Then you add in the war in Ukraine, and the war itself wouldn't have affected the American economy that much, but the sanctions certainly have. It's all It's all not good, and I don't know what's coming, but I would suggest people out there get out of the USD while you can. Invest in something like gold or silver or cryptocurrency or whatever. That's not financial advice, but I don't think the USD is in a very good spot at the moment. When we get back, we're going to talk about adults dropping dead mysteriously. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The United States has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian forces battle Russian advances in the east of the country, in particular around the besieged city of Severodonetsk. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The White House says President Joe Biden and President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke for more than 40 minutes, during which time Mr. Biden promised an additional $1 billion in security assistance to the embattled country. That'll include additional artillery, advanced rocket systems, and coastal defense weapons. With Russian advances in the Donbass, Ukraine has been urging Western countries to supply more sophisticated weaponry. The Biden administration is also earmarking an extra $225 million in humanitarian assistance to help civilians caught up in the conflict.
The US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 of a percentage point. It's the biggest rate hike since 1994. US stocks rose on the news, with the Dow Jones ending a 5-day cold streak. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
Analysts have described the interest rate hike as aggressive as the Federal Reserve looks to tackle rapidly increasing inflation in the US. The move takes the Fed's benchmark interest rate to a range of 1.5 to 1.75%, the highest it's been since before the COVID-19 pandemic. The report from the central bank following their 2-day meeting also cut the outlook for economic growth in the US for 2022 from 2.8% to 1.7%. But the committee said it was still largely optimistic about the economy, saying job gains have been robust in recent months, with unemployment remaining low. Sarah Walton, New York.
Outside advisors to the Food and Drug Administration have voted unanimously to recommend authorization of the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccines for very young children. It could clear the way for regulators to authorize both long-awaited pediatric vaccines on an emergency basis later this week. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The FDA has said that clinical trial data from Pfizer for its 3-dose vaccine for children 6 months through 4 years old and from Moderna's 2 doses for 6-month-olds through 5 years old has met the criteria for safety and effectiveness. Much to the dismay of many parents, more than 2 years into the pandemic, no vaccine has been authorised for children younger than 5 in the United States. The FDA is expected to act on these recommendations promptly, followed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention later this week. If they authorise the vaccines, the White House says that doses could start to be administered in earnest on Tuesday.
The public face of the US government's pandemic response effort, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has tested positive for COVID-19. The National Institutes of Health said he's experiencing mild symptoms. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the 5th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire in London that left 72 people dead when a blaze engulfed a block of flats in West London. Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge were among guests attending a memorial service on Monday. A 72-second silence was observed in honour of the victims who died when fire spread rapidly through the building, due in large part to polyethylene cladding on its exterior.
I'm remitting grief and anger. It's just anger, really, that nothing has happened.
Emma Dent-Coad was the local Member of Parliament in West London at the time of the blaze and decries how little has changed since.
They are still approving buildings with one staircase, tall buildings with one staircase. The regulations aren't tight enough, and there's a whole generation of inspectors and building controllers and chartered surveyors that just doesn't exist to check these buildings. So we've got nowhere, really. That's the feeling around here for sure, is that all this happened and we haven't got far enough. 5 years have passed, and we could have a Grenfell 2 tonight.
There have been some changes. The cladding used on Grenfell Tower has now been banned, and the British government says it's stepping up efforts to ensure other blocks are safe. But victims' families argue it's taken far too long for those efforts to pick up pace. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
Procter & Gamble introduced a beginner series of its Bounty paper towel brand this week, specifically designed to assist novices in acclimating to the household cleaning product. The new entry-level paper towels will reportedly feature bold labels and guide markers clearly printed on the surface of each sheet, as well as a step-by-step instructional DVD in each package.
Make sure that your paper towel is directly on top of the stain and not beside the stain. Otherwise, you won't absorb any liquid. Place your paper towel directly on the stain and make a gentle wiping motion.
In this week's local news, an Aria man knows that deep down, he's not done vomiting. In other news, Los Angeles residents are plagued by a roving pack of feral celebrities living in the Hollywood Hills. God wonders what happens to humans after they die, and a local dad clarifies that this is not a food stop. I was told early on that I would never be able to procreate, but I imagine the cold, dejected sensation I experience at the end of this news summary is similar to what a father feels when holding a child of his own flesh and blood.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And I've seen these articles floating around. I think I even clicked one and I read it, but I don't remember the specifics about it. Sudden adult death syndrome is what they're calling it. It's SADS. It's the adult version of SIDS. SIDS, for those who don't know, is sudden infant death syndrome. And I don't know the specifics of that either, but apparently sometimes infants just die and they have a hard time, or they find it impossible to find an actual cause or reason for the infant's death. Apparently, though, that is now affecting adults, or maybe it's been affecting adults, but now in larger numbers. But adults seem to be just unexplainably dying. And I don't know how to say that this is probably related to COVID-19's vaccination without saying that it's related to COVID-19 vaccinations, but adults weren't suddenly dropping dead prior to the COVID-19 vaccination thing.
I mean, the same thing with SIDS. Babies weren't just dropping dead until they started giving literal newborns several vaccinations, like hours after they were born.
That started in 1986, right?
Yeah.
That's what somebody told me the other day.
Which is, around that time. I don't know the exact year, but right around the same time where they started vaccinating children, like out of the womb. So
see, I didn't know they vaccinated children that quickly. That's
they
surprising.
do, yeah, like day one. Your kid's vaccinated usually against the flu and hepatitis B. Which, how is your baby going to get hepatitis B?
Isn't hepatitis B, there's 3 different hepatitis, right? And only one of them is sexually transmitted, and that's B, isn't it?
Yeah, you can get hepatitis B other ways, like through contaminated water or contaminated food, but if your kid's either drinking formula or breastfeeding and they're in a hospital, it's pretty much impossible for them to get hepatitis. It's just not going to happen unless their mother has it, which maybe would be a reason for vaccination, but it's just there are so many more cons than pros here.
But if they already have hepatitis, why would you vaccinate them with it? Like if they got it from their mom at birth and breastfeeding.
So what's going on with sudden adult death syndrome?
So a strange new medical anomaly has doctors baffled as it sweeps across the country. Sudden adult death syndrome, or SADS, is on the rise, and it's drastically claiming the lives of healthy young adults, sometimes in their sleep.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah. But I've been hearing about this at least for a while now, and it was kind of right after they rolled out the vaccines.
Yeah, there were athletes.
Athletes, soccer players, like very healthy people. And there's a slew of different theories that people have. I don't really know what the truth is here. And I don't even necessarily want to say that this is definitely because of the COVID-19 vaccine. But I just think it's really, really interesting that this is just happening all of a sudden and we were seeing all of these other things.
That's the position I tend to take with it. I don't believe that this is a result of the COVID-19 vaccines. I definitely see how it could be, and I think it's suspicious. But I lack the evidence to say that this is caused by that.
Yeah.
However, A happened, and then B happened, and it seems like there should be a connection between the two events.
Yeah. Correlation is not causation, but
sometimes the person did fall because they fell into the ground and died.
Well, people are always saying, how come cancer didn't happen in the 1700s and it just suddenly is happening so bad now? And people always like to say it was happening, but the dumb people back then just didn't know it was happening.
Yeah, right.
This is something that we know wasn't happening in 2019.
Yeah, you would know if somebody was just dropping dead. But even with the cancer thing, I mean, I don't want to get too off topic, but plastics, all of the toxins were the cleaning products we're using.
Gasoline, it's a known carcinogen, and we're burning it and pumping massive amounts of it into the atmosphere.
So, and the pesticides that are on our food. So we're being exposed to so many toxins that go way past what tobacco could possibly do. So, and I think that's why people, even though people were smoking tobacco, I mean, one, it didn't have all the additives that it does today, but it's that in combination. It's all of the things are the perfect storm to give people cancer.
Yeah, I learned the other day that there isn't a source of water on Earth that isn't contaminated by microplastics anymore. It all has to be filtered.
Don't you
it's
eat
ridiculous.
Like a credit card's worth of plastic every year or something like that? I don't remember
be surprised.
Me either.
I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah, there was something recently about a credit card amount of plastic each year, or maybe each month. I don't remember. But we eat a lot of plastic, apparently, without even realizing it.
So essentially, people are dying without displaying any prior signs of illness. They simply do not wake up after going to bed or collapse during the day.
See, that's scary as hell, people. Healthy adults are going to bed and then just not waking up. Or they're just collapsing and dying as they go about their day.
And what's interesting is, so this happens to elderly people sometimes, right? Everybody's like, that's how I want to die. I just want to die peacefully in my sleep. But then when you do an autopsy, you're like, oh, they had a brain aneurysm, or they had a stroke, or they had a heart attack. You can find a cause of death. Yeah. But how come when this is happening to young people, all of a sudden, randomly, we can't find any cause of death with an autopsy? It just seems very unlikely that we have all of this medical technology and you can do an autopsy and find the cause of death for pretty much almost everything, except it doesn't add up to me.
That's what surprises me about sudden adult death syndrome, is that there could possibly be any death that could happen, and the autopsy people go, you know what, we can't figure out what killed this person. Like, really?
Yeah.
Let's say Joe Biden, I don't want him to die, but let's say he just dies of sudden adult death syndrome. You mean to tell me that all of the best medical experts in the world cannot pinpoint an exact reason that he would have died? I just don't believe it. If they have enough time and they have enough money, they could figure it out. And I tend to think that the clues are all there. They're just not putting it together.
Well, basically, they fired everybody who actually wanted to work in healthcare for good reasons. I don't really trust anything these people say, including autopsy people. I'm pretty sure that they have to be, with the state religion in order to do their jobs anymore. And I just really don't trust anything these people say. They could easily be covering something up. They know that if they find out A, B, or C was the cause of death, they're supposed to say, oh, sudden adult death syndrome, we can't see. And I think that people who would go along with the crap that was going on in 2020 and 2021 would probably go along with that crap too. And they're just doing their jobs.
That's a great point, Bonnie, about not trusting the people working in healthcare, because I'm thinking about it, a lot of my coworkers who were like adamantly against the vaccine, like they just really, really didn't trust it and they didn't want to get it. And then when they were backed into a corner, they ended up getting it. If they're not willing to stick up for their rights, why would they stick up for mine? Why would they care about my bodily autonomy if they couldn't even do that same thing for themselves?
I hate that, because now the vaccination mandates are lifting in some places. Like I saw today, I think on Drudge Report, that Canada is lifting its requirements that require that all international truck drivers be vaccinated or something like that. It's like, dude, for like 6 months, they put these people out of work. They destroyed people's lives.
And imagine being one of those people that did something that they didn't want to do. It's one thing if you're like, whatever, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if somebody really, really didn't want to do it and they ended up doing it for whatever reason, and then things got lifted, and this is what I was trying to tell some of my coworkers. I'm like, if you don't care, then just go and get it. It doesn't matter. But if you are adamantly against it and you just spent months of your lives speaking out against this and working towards your medical freedom, and then you never know when these things are going to be reversed. And I knew it was going to the Supreme Court, and I had a really strong suspicion that a lot of these mandates and things were going to be reversed. So don't make a forever decision for a temporary problem.
And also, it would have been reversed a lot faster if everybody who was against it stood up for themselves.
Yeah.
But it is difficult, when you have kids to feed and, a mortgage and all of this other stuff to take care of, and your employer's like, hey, get this vaccination or we're going to have to fire you. I understand why people in those positions, they weren't willing to take a stand on, their beliefs, their right to choose for their own body and for their own family, because they do have kids to feed.
I understand as well, but ultimately they made that decision and nobody else made the decision for them, and they made a decision that is worse for their children than just having something bad happen to them temporarily. And I can't just say, oh, they did the right thing. I really can't.
You're not wrong. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. 603-283-6160.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Free Talk Live.
There's only one place you could have sex without everybody else knowing about it. That's in the bathroom. Unless you want to go back into the crew quarters, which might give you bonus points. The Mile High Club awards you, I suppose, based on the amount of times that you've entered into the club. Not only do you want to be in the club, you want to be the top dog.
Yeah,
right?
you got to be a premier member.
So I would think there'd have to be points for location on the plane, who you encountered with. Were you there with your girlfriend? Did you take her into the bathroom? Did you manage to get a stewardess into the bathroom with you? Did you manage to get the girl that you just happened to be sitting next to on the plane? I mean, so all of these things could be worth.
Oh, man. To be a part of the Mile High Club, what's the criteria?
You have to
copulate in the air.
Yeah.
What defines copulation? Who has to have an orgasm? Does there have to be an orgasm?
Or do you just have to stick it in and pull it out?
Is it just penetration? Bam, bam. We're out of here. Mile High Club, give me my card.
Yeah.
You know?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you are welcome to weigh in, share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. We've been trying to wake people up here on Free Talk Live to the realities of government oppression, and we're not the only ones out there trying to wake people up. And if you've gotten sick of bashing your head against the wall trying to wake up your family and friends, well, we have something that might help. It's called Truth Smacks. Our friend Susan, former English teacher and longtime truth seeker, recently started her own trail mix brand. She makes it, bags it, and seals it herself in a commercial kitchen down in Florida. She calls it Truth Smacks because there's a heavy dose of truth on the back of every bag. There's 2 varieties. Well, there's 2 flavors, original flavor and peppermint infused, and they're only available at truthsmacks.com. truthsmacks.com/shop. And it's a great way to smack your friends and family with truth in a loving way. No artificial crap, all raw, unadulterated ingredients, food as nature intended. That's truthsmacks.com. Spreading truth one delicious morsel at a time. truthsmacks.com/shop. Let's keep going with the phones. We have Aaron on the line listening on WGSO in New Orleans. Aaron, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes. Hey, ladies, I'm glad to say we have the girl power working tonight.
Yeah, it's She Talk Live.
Yeah, it's been a thing on Wednesdays for like a year now, hasn't it? At least.
Is that right? Well, I listen on WGSO. They, for the most part, they play your show. Sometimes they do have local shows that they play instead. But with all of that said, yes, I just heard the segment you all were talking about, SADS, about the sudden adult death syndrome. And you know what? I think, just from what you all were talking about, maybe that's what happened to Bob Saget, because, I just find it hard to believe that he supposedly died from some type of a brain or a head trauma, and he didn't do anything about it. I mean, he's in a hotel, he's on tour, and something happens where he hits his head to the point where it's going to kill him, and he just calls it a night and gets up in his bed. I just don't agree with that.
I don't know. That happens to a lot of people. I had a concussion and didn't know it, and went about my life. I mean, I didn't die, but lots of people just
Obviously.
are like, I don't feel right, but let me sleep this off.
Is that what happened with Bob Saget? He hit his head and then he went back to bed and then he never woke up?
That's what the theory is.
I assumed I didn't know any details about the Bob Saget story, but I did have a suspicion that it was something like SADS or some vaccine-related injury. That was just my own personal suspicion.
Well, I've had, I don't know, maybe you all can tell me if you all have ever experienced this, but do you all ever wake up in the middle of the night and you have a racing heart, or you're having a feeling of you're out of breath, or a feeling of a dread? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, like a cold sweat. That's happened to me.
All too often. I mean, it's a sleep apnea, so I wake up, out of breath and panting and stuff like that fairly often.
I don't have it that often, but when I was having sleep issues, I had it more often because I had been in a car accident, I was on a whole bunch of medications, and I was really afraid to fall asleep for whatever reason. I was on Keppra, it makes you crazy, and I kept waking up with a gasp, and then I was in a cold sweat. So I think, lots of people with sleep apnea probably have that issue.
Well, as far as the freedom movement goes, we can certainly use some help down here in New Orleans. I know people like to call it the Big Easy, but we actually have a very repressive local government here. I mean,
so leave. Come to New Hampshire instead.
Wait, what were you going to ask about the waking up in a cold sweat?
No. I thought, you know how SIDS and SADS is something that happens in your sleep. So I was just asking if you all had ever experienced that. I've experienced that in the past, where you just wake up in the middle of the night and you have this racing heart, and I don't know if that had anything to do with these other cases or not.
No, that's pretty that's pretty typical of sleep apnea. And when someone dies of sleep apnea, the autopsy guy is able to say, "Hey, look, it was sleep apnea. We can see here how whatever was obstructing their pathways, and they couldn't breathe, and they suffocated in their sleep." So that's not unexplainable. That's easily explained generally.
Right. Well, just to give you ladies just a little quick update of what's going on here. We have a Democrat-run city, which is fine. It's been a Democrat-run city for probably about 3 or 4 generations now. However, it's getting to the point now where the local government officials no longer answer questions. They don't answer questions, for example, in front of the city council. They don't answer questions to the media. They've just stopped answering questions. And these are questions about real issues. I mean, like taxpayer money and, why did this firm get this deal to do this job? And so that is the new wall of resistance here. Is just that we just don't answer it now.
Well, do you believe in representative democracy, and do you vote?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, then you gave them the permission to do that. You gave away part of your own responsibility to live your life to these people, and now they can do whatever they want if you've given away part of your sovereignty to them.
Well, I'm assuming you guys vote in New Hampshire also.
I vote for people I personally know, however. Because that's what we have here in New Hampshire. We have an actual liberty movement. We're not just like 4 people in the middle of a city of 60,000 or 100,000 or however many people live in New Orleans. I don't know. We actually have a movement here that's been trying for decades or close to decades to get people to move here. And as a result of that, when I voted in the last election, I personally knew every single person I voted for, and that's going to be the case when I go in to vote this coming November as well.
Yeah, I don't vote in categories of people that I know or don't know, because then they may be people who actually believe that they have the ability to represent me. And I know that if I'm voting for someone like Aria, then she actually believes in taking over a piece of the government's power to give everybody else more freedom by not controlling them.
So thank you so much for calling tonight, Aaron. I can't give you any advice on getting libertarians there to New Orleans to help out. There's already a project going on that's trying to get libertarians to a place to help each other out, and it's been so far the most successful libertarian migration that we've seen, and that's happening here in New Hampshire, where we have something like 40 Free Stater representatives in the House, and we have many more running this year. Some of them, we don't know who's going to win or who isn't going to win, but a lot of these have decent chances at actually becoming a new state representative.
And no other state is doing this.
No.
Nowhere are this many freedom-friendly representatives in the state house.
And if all the libertarians that exist in the United States, which is a very small number, I know people have estimated, but I don't want to estimate, a very small number of people spread out and went to different places in the United States to try to make a difference, they would never be able to make a difference because there's too small a number of the percentage of the population. It makes the most sense to all go to one place. You can't have a freedom movement in multiple places. That doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron.
Well, people can try, and I do think people should live wherever they want to live, but just don't be surprised when your government is oppressive.
That's the thing, right? They should live where they want to live, but I would rather live where I can be free. And as far as I can tell, New Hampshire has the best chances of being able to offer me that, because there are so many people here working toward that same goal. Whereas you have something like the National Libertarian Party, which, as Bonnie points out, it's a great idea, but at best, libertarians are like 3% of the American population. You're never going to win an election. And diffusing your power across the entire United States, it's achieving nothing. We got to get to one place, and we got to work toward a common goal of achieving liberty in our lifetime. And from what I could tell, New Hampshire is the best place to do that. But maybe I'm wrong. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denslow. The United States has pledged another $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. It comes as Ukrainian forces battle Russian advances in the east of the country, in particular around the besieged city of Severodonetsk. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The White House says President Joe Biden and President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke for more than 40 minutes, during which time Mr. Biden promised an additional $1 billion in security assistance to the embattled country. That'll include additional artillery, advanced rocket systems, and coastal defense weapons. With Russian advances in the Donbass, Ukraine has been urging Western countries to supply more sophisticated weaponry. The Biden administration is also earmarking an extra $225 million in humanitarian assistance to help civilians caught up in the conflict.
The US Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 percentage point. It's the biggest rate hike since 1994. US stocks rose on the news, with the Dow Jones ending a 5-day cold streak. Sarah Walton reports from New York.
Analysts have described the interest rate hike as aggressive as the Federal Reserve looks to tackle rapidly increasing inflation in the US. The move takes the Fed's benchmark interest rate to a range of 1.5 to 1.75%, the highest it's been since before the COVID-19 pandemic. The report from the central bank following their 2-day meeting also cut the outlook for economic growth in the US for 2022 from 2.8% to 1.7%. But the committee said it was still largely optimistic about the economy, saying job gains have been robust in recent months, with unemployment remaining low. Sarah Walton, New York.
Outside advisors to the Food and Drug Administration have voted unanimously to recommend authorization of the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccines for very young children. It could clear the way for regulators to authorize both long-awaited pediatric vaccines on an emergency basis later this week. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The FDA has said that clinical trial data from Pfizer for its 3-dose vaccine for children 6 months through 4 years old and from Moderna's 2 doses for 6-month-olds through 5 years old has met the criteria for safety and effectiveness. Much to the dismay of many parents, more than 2 years into the pandemic, no vaccine has been authorised for children younger than 5 in the United States. The FDA is expected to act on these recommendations promptly, followed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention later this week. If they authorise the vaccines, the White House says that doses could start to be administered in earnest on Tuesday.
The public face of the US government's pandemic response effort, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has tested positive for COVID-19. The National Institutes of Health said he's experiencing mild symptoms. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you're invited to take control of the airwaves. Share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you would like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Nikki, and Bonnie.
And I want to say thank you to David Burns, who is tonight's amplifier. This means that David is a member of the AMPS program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. That's our Patreon. And if you like the show, if you value the show and you want to help it reach a larger audience, joining the AMPS program is the best way to do that. That's amps.freetalklive.com. It only takes $5 per month. That gets you in. It does have a number of cool little features like an AMP-only Facebook group, and there's an AMP-only room on our chat server, so check it out, amps.freetalklive.com. David, however, is a platinum member, which means that David is given at least $25 per month to the program. So, David, thank you so much for those contributions. Let's keep going to the phones. However, we have Jack on the line from Washington. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live.
All right, Aria, you're one of my favorite hosts, but I just want to say something. We were talking about souls and spirituality earlier, and Bonnie made some really good arguments with fact-based information backing her comments up. And I feel like, because I played high school football. I was secretly not a heterosexual, even though I went to a prom with a woman. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have kind of a spiritual closet, because you said you were passionate when you were young about being a Christian. I'm sorry again, I'm not trying to make you angry, but you were passionate when you were a Christian, and now you're passionate now, but you feel like you're kind of in the closet spiritually.
I do not feel like I'm in the closet spiritually.
I think he meant to say that he feels like you are.
I don't know why you would think that. I am quite content with my spiritual beliefs and all that entails.
I always called all my friends the F word, F-A, whatever, or whatever, jokingly. And even though the entire time I was, and I feel like you kind of pick on spirituality, not just Christianity, but specifically because you had a really, really tough childhood. What you told me about in Mississippi and what I've heard about was tough.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the with my position on the spiritual and this idea that I'm of the opinion that I'm closer to a panentheist, really, which is that the universe is God. I'm God. Everything that exists is God. But at the same time, I recognize that makes God absolutely meaningless, and it's just me, an existing creature, recognizing the all that is existence, and I'm fine with that. And I don't need to prescribe anything else outside of this existence in order to find wonder and awe in that. And I think it's disingenuous for you to sit here and say, oh, well, it's because Christians were mean to you when you were a kid that you're sitting there saying, wow, I'm in awe by the entire universe, and I want to cheapen that with these labels like deity and God and a bearded guy in the sky.
Christians were not mean to me. Or are you referring to yourself? Christians were mean to me.
I was referring to myself. I think, like I said, I think it's disingenuous for someone to just wave away everything that I've said about religion and my religious beliefs, and the fact that, I wouldn't characterize myself as a panentheist in the way that Ian does. I would say that, I'm an atheist, but he and I have had this conversation. I think we had it on a episode of Freer Talk Live, where it's exactly the same belief. It's just stated in different ways.
Well, I think that it's kind of cheapening Aria's beliefs to say, there's like a trap that exists when exiting Christianity, and people need to get out of the mindset. Stephen, that caller that called last week when we were talking about Christianity, I needed to get out of it. It sounds like maybe you're kind of trapped in this thought process just from the culture we live in the United States that's so Jesus-centric that you can't believe in God and not believe in Christianity. You can believe in God. It's something totally different.
I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, which was, believe it or not, very anti-Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it was a government that held its weight on my shoulders my entire adulthood, young adulthood, and youth, and really challenged me. And I found from not any organized religion, I've said this before too on the show, but I don't believe in any organized religion. If you want to get together and read the Bible or read the Quran or,
What do you mean by organized religion? Because I don't think that being organized necessarily, means a religion is false. And if three people happen to share the same belief system and they write it down and they organize it, I don't think that means their belief system is false.
Well, you said something earlier. You said that God is everything. Am I wrong about that quote?
No, that's a fair assessment. But, I would also point out that if you carry that further...
punchline on this.
Well, don't characterize my beliefs and then do so only half-assed, right? What I said was that God is... Hold on, Jack. What I said was that God is everything and therefore God is nothing. If everything is God, then basically nothing is God. Right? What we're talking about here is the awe of existence.
That's philosophy right there, and I agree with you. That's a good question, man.
Well, that's the summary of my beliefs. It's not just, everything is God. No, it's everything is God, and therefore nothing is God, and we're just, beings in awe at the fact that we exist. That's a very different thing.
Are we not?
I would suggest
we're in awe. I'm in awe that we exist.
I can't speak whether or not anyone else is in awe about existence. I think what religion does, a lot of these religions like Christianity, is allows them to forget how inspiring and how majestic and wondrous existence actually is, because here comes this decree from these human beings, and they've outlined exactly why everyone exists and what the purpose is and how it's all going to end, and it's A to B to C to D, and there's no majesty or wonder in it whatsoever. It's like this because the bearded God said so, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I don't
What the government says, the government of Christianity. I'm sorry, Bonnie.
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree that in Christianity, there's a lot of interesting, mystical, wondrous things to ponder, and people often create a government out of it by saying, this is what this means, this is what this means. My mom, if I told her the Bible verses from John that Jesus says, make the eye become single and it will fill your eye with light and the kingdom of heaven is within you, she would say, no, that means this, this, and this. Really lame explanation just because somebody else told her that's what it means, because she cannot possibly believe that it means that we're all gods, even though Jesus said we're all gods. But anyways,
It's definitely difficult to have these sorts of conversation with Christians because they do have their own interpretation, their own weird little interpretations of what the Bible says. And it doesn't matter what the Bible actually says, right? The actual text of the Bible, when you're talking to a Christian, is completely meaningless to the conversation ahead because, one, they don't know what the text actually says. Mm-hmm. And two, even if they do, they're going to twist it to mean the exact opposite of what it actually says in the first place.
My mom has in her head an arsenal of responses that she's memorized from what other people have told her it means anytime there's something in the Bible that contradicts itself and you ask her about it. And when I was a kid, I was innocently asking, like, well, if Jesus says this and this and blah, 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 how do you make that make sense? Just because she was an authority figure and I wanted her to explain it to me. And she would often get stumped, have to Google and then be like, so this is what that means because I got the answer online. And it's by these apologists who, they write what they want everybody to believe that the Bible means, and really you should interpret that yourself. And oh my God, it has so many beautiful ideas and philosophies in it. I love reading the Bible still.
I love how Bonnie was like 6 years old when she debunked the Bible.
I like how Christian apologetics has evolved throughout the eons, right? Like you have books of the Bible where like Elijah is confronting the priests of Baal, and he's like, pour 12 barrels of water on the ox, and I'm going to light it. My God is going to light it on fire, and all of you will see His glory. And modern day Christians aren't doing that. They're like, oh no, look, if you read this passage a certain way, what it actually says is that the calf didn't catch on fire. It's just amazing how apologetics has evolved. The same God, allegedly, who was setting bulls on fire that were soaked in water in order to prove His existence, can't be bothered to even appear in a tortilla chip these days.
Or keep his books, intact throughout the years.
Yeah, to me, it's shady at best that God had so much to say, and then suddenly He has nothing to say. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and we're running out of time, but if you want to weigh in, 603-283-6160. That'll get you in. Or if you want to carry on the conversation, the best way to do it really is on our social media server. You can find that at social.freetalklive.com. Signing up, it's free, and there's no corporate overlord to censor you, so check it out, social.freetalklive.com. With you in the studio tonight, though, it's been Aria,
Nikki,
and Bonnie.
And we have Ian on the line from here in New Hampshire. Ian, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey, ladies. I was just listening to the conversation about religion and listening to you, Aria, talking about how panentheism means that everything is God. And that is what pantheism is. Panentheism would mean that everything that is in the metaphysical, that is to say, so everything that's physical and everything that is metaphysical is all God. And so you could come to the conclusion that that means that God is nothing, but that's not the conclusion that I prefer. I like the viewpoint expressed in the book Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and that is that the experience that we're all having, and Bonnie kind of touched on it a little bit, suggesting that we're all, pieces of God, but that we are essentially experiencing the universe through our own individual experiences, and of course there are infinite perspectives, or at least as many perspectives as there are living things to experience. And so God is essentially learning about itself through all of our experiences, and we are made in God's image in that we can create. So we're basically little creators. We don't have the ability to fly, and our time here is limited, but ultimately we are all an expression of God and God experiencing itself.
See, so I don't disagree.
That's a little more meaningful than the way you described it, which is to say that everything is God, and so therefore that means nothing. To me, that means quite a bit.
I like the expression that we are how the universe experiences itself. It means it's exactly the same thing that you just said. It's just phrased differently. Mine just removes the concept of God from the equation entirely. I exist, and I'm part of the universe. I'm indistinguishable from the rest of the universe, as is everyone else. So to me, it's not really a question of whether or not
you are distinguishable. You look quite unique compared to everyone else.
Only on a surface level, though. I mean, when we get
there's more to you than how you look, obviously. But you're collecting information about this creation, whoever it is or whatever it is that made this happen, is experiencing it through us, and for whatever reason, that whatever that entity is, however we want to describe it, God or the universe, wanted that to happen. And part of that experience is the idea of free will, which we get to make these decisions and ultimately shape this world in the experience in whatever way we want. To me sounds more empowering to be a piece of God rather than to play it off as though it doesn't mean anything. But that's just my perspective.
One thing I think I differ from you and Aria, Ian, about this is I do believe that we are all God, like us human beings, and maybe parts of Earth and stuff like that. But I don't believe what you and Olivia and Aria seem to be saying, that like every single thing is God, every single thing has a soul, because I think the purpose of being in this place where we don't really know why we're here and we have to figure it out is because imagine you're God, you're everything. You want to have an experience where you're separated from God, because that's the only way to learn more about yourself. That's the only way to know what really, to appreciate what you have, to really appreciate what you are, to have another perspective of what you are. You need to be in this place where there are things that go on here that are absolutely not of God. They're not something else, though, because there is nothing else. They're the absence of God. Just like there's no such thing as dark, there's only the absence of light. There is stuff here that is like fear, that is the absence of God. And I think that's why we're here, is to gain perspective and learn.
I think I tend to agree a little bit more with what you're saying, Bonnie.
I hadn't really thought about it or existence in those kinds of terms. I'm going to have to give that more thought, because I've never really thought about it either. Right.
Well, also, I like what Bonnie said, and I don't agree that everything has a soul. And she said that I did. I don't agree with that.
Oh, sorry. I guess Olivia said that.
I would say that everything has a soul in so much as anything has a soul. That would be my position.
So, but where do you draw the line, though?
Right.
Aria doesn't believe in the soul, so she's...
well, that's because I would say that everything does have a soul, and because of that, if everything that exists has a soul, so back to what I said about gods, it's effectively meaningless and means that no one has a soul. It's just
well, science says we're all connected, so there is that,
absolutely,
we're sharing electrons and such with the desk and all that, but it doesn't have, in my opinion, consciousness or a soul or whatever it is that is within us, that is that unique animating spark.
Like Lambda.
So I'll disagree with Aria that the soul doesn't exist. I think it absolutely does. And whether or not that soul lives on after death is an interesting discussion to have as well, but beyond our scope for tonight. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call. I wish there were good answers. I mean, everyone's got different, beliefs, and that's great. And by hashing these things out, it may be that we become just a little bit closer to what is actually the case, because I don't know what the case is. I don't know whether or not we're all gods and that means there is no God or whatever. I don't know. This is what I'm operating under, what I believe to be true based on what I've observed and what makes sense to me.
And that's exactly... sorry, can I just say one thing about that, because that's so important to me. That's exactly what the trivium is. It's inputting information, processing like a computer, processing it internally in your brain, then output, as in talking with other people and refining it and experimenting in real life, finding out what the truth is.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are dark and evil elements of this reality. That's undeniable. There are human beings who want to control and want to oppress and want to commit evil. And even if we remove that human element, there's still evil out there within the universe. One of the Buddhist principles is that there is suffering, and that's because the one thing that is guaranteed to every living organism throughout all of the universe's history is that organism will suffer. And I don't necessarily think that's good or bad, but it means that it isn't all good, right? So it can't just be God is love. God would also have to be hate, I suppose. And I don't know if I want to say that God is hate just because I recognize that there is a duality to everything.
Well, so maybe it's not that hate has to be bad. So not everything needs to be like definitively good or bad, when we can kind of like come up above the line and not put things into these categories and just everything just is.
Well, Anton LaVey pointed out that without evil to fight against, a person can't be good. So if God is evil, then it's because God needs a way for God to also be good, I suppose.
I think about that a lot with like the people. I'm always thinking about these people who are born psychopaths. Like, it's so sad to me and stuff. So I'm just always thinking about it because that's the people that control our lives, like the politicians and the people that control politicians. And I'm always thinking maybe they kind of had a soul contract where they decided to come here and be that force for other people to fight against because it just sharpens good.
I don't know if I agree that people are born psychopaths. I believe more that they're created as maybe the kind of contact that they've had when they're infants, or maybe things that have I don't know, even if it might be something that has happened in utero, but I don't know if people are specifically ingrained that they are going to have these psychopathic tendencies.
I don't know if they are or not either, but this just makes me want to go home and read Anton LaVey and some of his works, because he talks about this. And one of the reasons that people love pointing to Hitler so much is because he is this ultimate evil that allows everyone, no matter how not good they are, to look at themselves and go, yeah, I'm the good guy, because that's the bad guy. He calls it a good guy badge. And that's what most people do throughout their entire lives. They're not actually agents of good unless you stack Adolf Hitler as the evil that they're the good counter to. They're just existing for the most part. They're not good people. They're not bad people. They're just existing and going through the motions and not really rocking the boat one way or the other.
Well, and it's just perspective, you know? So it's like whether, like, what is good and bad to me is going to be different than what's good and bad to you guys. You know, everybody has their own perspectives on this. So it's difficult to definitively say what is good.
I would say that it's probably impossible, yeah. Because we do have these general maxims, like, you know, people prefer pleasure over pain. So it's generally bad to inflict pain on people, obviously without their permission and stuff like that. But that's not always universally true. You know, in order to save person B's life, you may have to inflict pain on person A. Sometimes there is no happy solution where there's 100% a good answer.
And that's basically what I was trying to explain to Olivia about my beliefs about do unto others. It isn't a specific thing to do. It isn't treat everybody equally and do the exact same things to everybody, or make everybody do the same things you want to do. It's, you know, you want your highest good and they want their highest good. If you can't give it to them, you need to just leave them alone. And that's basically where I get the non-aggression principle. And I think I believe that is definitive truth and also definitively good.
It's at least the closest that we can come to definitive truth, the non-aggression principle. We can all agree on that. We're out of time for tonight. Join us in the meantime on our social server at social.freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover